Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham karoti vachanam Angam langyate girehem Yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurudena Dharana Varmanandam Madhavam. Hare Krishna, thank you for joining. So we'll continue our discussion in the fourth canto, chapter 24, and from verse 29. This is basically the concluding part of the conversation between Lord Shiva and Prachetas before Lord Shiva recites the Rudra Gita. So if you remember, the Prachetas, under the instruction of our Pratinabari, in order to become qualified to enter Grihastha ashram and have good progeny, they were heading to perform austerities for 10,000 years. And as they were going, they came across this water body, and there are a few verses that describe how serene it was, the nature of the plants and animals, and they resolved to perform the austerity underwater in that lake. And just at that time, Lord Shiva emerges from the lake. And the Prachetas are completely astounded. And Lord Shiva begins to talk to them. So he glorifies the qualities of the Prachetas, and essentially bringing forth the qualities by which one attracts the mercy of other exalted devotees. So the quality of surrender to the Guru. They were performing this austerity under the order of the father or the position of a Guru. Then the quality of surrender to the personality of Godhead. So even though they had not actually completed that process or not even started the process, but just the resolve, the determination, that was appreciated by Lord Shiva. So in the commentary, Prabhupada says, Vishnu Chakravarti Pad says that getting the audience of Lord Shiva is very difficult. And the jivas have to perform very, very severe austerity for thousands of years. But here Lord Shiva, without even being asked, is coming on his own. He is so attracted by devotion to Krishna. And so are the other devas. Okay, so we'll continue with verse 29. Swadharmanishta shatajanma virpuman viranchatameti tata param imam avyakratam bhagavato tha vaishnavam padam yathaham vibhuda kalatyaye. A person who executes his occupational duty properly for 100 births becomes qualified to occupy the post of Brahma. And if he becomes more qualified, he can approach Lord Shiva. A person who is directly surrendered to Lord Krishna or Vishnu in unalloyed devotional service is immediately promoted to the spiritual planets. Lord Shiva and other demigods attain these planets after the destruction of this material world. So while Lord Shiva is appreciating the qualities of the Prachetas, he is also appreciating the process of bhakti. Here he is glorifying bhakti as being most exalted and easy to perform. So how is he saying it's most exalted? Because he is talking about the succession of the hierarchy of the planets. That there is, in the material world, the highest planet is Brahmaloka. And higher than the Brahmaloka is Sadashiva. And even higher than that is Vaikuntha. And so he's saying the destination is the highest. Now, how is he saying that it is the easiest? So he's saying that in order to attain Brahma's position, one has to perfectly perform karma kand for 100 births. Which means that if in any birth there is a mistake, then they become disqualified. Right? And even more difficult than that is becoming an associate of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva does not offer his position because unlike Brahma, Shiva is Nitya. So he does not say that one can occupy the position of Shiva, but he says one can become an associate of Lord Shiva by even performing even more austerities. So this is the difficulty in one getting these destinations. But the process of bhakti is so potent that it directly takes one to a higher destination. So he makes these 2 points, that the destination of bhakti is higher and the process is simpler. So when Lord Shiva says that one can become an associate of Lord Shiva, Vishwanath Chakravarti makes this point that he's actually alluding to Sadashiv Lok, not to the material Shiv Lok, but is alluding to Sadashiv Lok, where Lord Shiva as the expansion of Mahavishnu resides, which Sadashiv is also kind of in Vaikuntha. It's an eternal planet, and it's considered to be, Prabhupada at one point says that it's in the margin between Brahman and Vaikuntha. Srila Prabhupada interprets this slightly different. And he says that what Lord Shiva is saying, that he himself, so Lord Shiva himself, reaches Vaikuntha after the end of this material world. So in the translation, if you see that Prabhupada translates like Lord Shiva and other demigods attain these planets after the destruction of the material world. However, in the purport, Prabhupada also incorporates the description given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad. So he says that there is also a planet called Shiva Lok or Sadashiv Lok, which is situated in a marginal position between the spiritual and material worlds. If after being situated in Brahma Lok, one becomes more qualified, he is promoted to Sadashiv Lok. Similarly, when one becomes even more qualified, he can attain the Vaikuntha Lokas. The Vaikuntha Lokas are target for everyone, even the demigods, and they can be attained by a devotee who has no desire for material benefit. Same point being made, slight differences in the specificity, but the point that is made is Vaikuntha is superior to Brahma Lok, Shiva Lok, and the path to Vaikuntha is a lot easier than to these other destinations. So the fact that Lord Shiva is saying that the Devas by the performance of Bhakti aspire to reach Vaikuntha indicates that Vaikuntha is considered to be worshipable even by them. Even the residents of Brahmalok aspire to reach Vaikuntha. And Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Brahma Bhuvanan Loka Punaravritana Arjuna. The reason being that all the way from Brahmalok down to the lowest planet, there is repeated destruction. But, and this is the second part of the verse, Mam upetu tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. That when you reach my destination, then there is no need to take birth again. The other reference is 4:9, where Krishna says, Takta deham punarjanmam neti mam janakaram cha me divyam yome veti tatvata takta deham punarjanmam neti mam iti. So, Arjuna, when you understands my nature and giving up his body, does not have to take birth again. Verse 30. Atha bhagavata yuyam priyasta bhagavan yata namad bhagavatanam cha preyananyastika hiche. You are all devotees of the Lord, and as such I appreciate that you are as respectable as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. I know in this way that the devotees also respect me and that I am dear to them. Thus, no one can be as dear to the devotees as I am. So Lord Shiva is revealing the cause of his affection to the Prachetas. So he's saying that you are a devotee of the Lord, I am a devotee of the Lord. And the nature of the devotees is that they hold each other in high esteem. So the fact Lord Shiva says that I am venerated by other devotees means that I should be considered as a devotee. And because you are devotees, I consider you as respectable. So Prabhupada says that Vaishnavam Yada Shampu, that Lord Shiva is the best of the devotees. Therefore, all devotees of Lord Krishna are also devotees of Lord Shiva. Prabhupada makes this interesting point. Generally, Prabhupada is very strong about discouraging demigod worship. And speaks about the exclusivity of devotion to Krishna, not being misled by demigod worship. But here he makes this point that all devotees of Lord Krishna are also devotees of Lord Shiva. And then he gives the example that in Vrindavan there is Lord Shiva's temple called Gopeshwara. And the gopis worship not only Lord Shiva but Katyani or Durga. And then Prabhupada gives the why is it okay for a devotee of Krishna to be a devotee of Shiva? Because the mood is that their aim was to attain the favor of Krishna. A devotee of Krishna does not disrespect Lord Shiva but worships Lord Shiva as the most exalted devotee of Lord Krishna. And so that is the mood in which this statement is upheld. That a devotee of Krishna is also a devotee of Lord Shiva. When the devotee looks upon Lord Shiva as an exalted devotee of Krishna. And even if they ask for something, they ask as a way to increase their service to Krishna. Prabhupada says, whenever a devotee worships Lord Shiva, he prays to achieve the favor of Krishna and not for any material benefit. So, Srila Prabhupada explains that the second offense in the chanting of the holy name, Namaprad, is to consider Krishna and Shiva, other demigods, to be the same. So this is a different mood in which one is not considering Shiva to be a devotee of Krishna, but the but same as Krishna, and that is offended. So actually, Mahanidhi Swami, he comments on this offense in the Art of Chanting Hare Krishna. So these offenses are from Padma Puran, and the verse that describes the second offense says, Shivasya Shri Vishnu Yahi Guna Nama Adi Sakalam Diya Bhinnam Paschet Sakhalu Hari Nam Hitkara. And the condensed translation of this is to think the name and qualities of the demigods to be equal to Lord Vishnu. And Mahanidhi Swami says that actually there are two interpretations to this verse. The first is the one that we are familiar with, which says that although Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva are leaders of the Devas, Shivasya Shri Vishnu, that they are both leaders of the Devas, the truth is that Lord Shiva and the Devas have no power independent of Lord Vishnu. Right? So that's the one that understanding with which we recite this poems. The second interpretation, which is given by Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Jaiv Dharma, says that it is an offense to the holy name to think that the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the all auspicious, so all auspicious here is Shiva, all auspicious personality of Godhead are different from his transcendental body. So essentially, the verse is saying that it is an offense to consider the Lord to be separate from his Nam, Roop, Gun, and Leela. And these collectively are considered to be auspicious qualities. Prabhupada in the purport says that the devotees must always know that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Lord Shiva is his devotee. A devotee should be offered respect on the same level of the personality of Godhead, and sometimes even more respect. Indeed, Lord Ram, the personality of Godhead himself, worshipped Lord Shiva. So the pastime Prabhupada is referring to is after Lord Ram kills Ravan, then in current temple of Rameshwaram, he establishes, actually Sita Devi establishes the Shivalinga, and Lord Ram worships it to be freed of the sin of killing a Brahman, because Ravan was the son of Vishrava, the son of Pulaster, he was Brahmanical. So by his lineage, he was Brahman, even though by his activities, he was demoniac. But Lord Ram was recommended to free himself, and so he prays to the linga over there. This does not actually appear in Valmiki Ramayana. It appears in some other versions of Ramayana. Valmiki Ramayana, there is no mention of Rameshwaram. So Prabhupada concludes that from this verse it appears that Lord Shiva blesses the Asuras simply for the sake of formality. Actually, he loves one who is devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what does it mean that he blesses for the sake of formality? So this is the description of Lord Shiva as Dharma Vatsal. Like we said that where Krishna is Bhakta Vatsal, Shiva is Dharma Vatsal. Dharma Vatsal means that if somebody follows the prescribed procedures, then out of formality, Lord Shiva comes and benedicts. Veda says, do this, do this, do this. The person does this, even if the person is demoniac, even if the person has evil intentions. But the fact that he has followed the recommended process, Lord Shiva feels obliged to come and benedict. Krishna does not do that, but that is Lord Shiva's nature. Okay, verse 31. Idam viviktam japatvayam pavitram mangalam param Nihashreyasya karam chapi shruyatam tadvadami vaha. Now I shall chant one mantra, which is not only transcendental, pure and auspicious, but is the best prayer for anyone who's aspiring to attain the ultimate goal of life. When I chant this mantra, please hear it carefully and attentively. So it's not actually one mantra, it's 36 verses. And figuratively, Lord Shiva is saying, because it's a stotra, stotra is like a mantra. So figuratively, he's saying one mantra. And this verse is kind of like a Mangalacharan. So that in a Mangalacharan, there are different components of the Mangalacharan. There is the benediction of auspiciousness. There is the qualification of the reader. There is the description of the relationship between the reader and the subject. There's a glorification of the subject. So in a very concise way, Lord Shiva is chanting the Mangalacharan, that he describes the Rudra Gita as transcendental, pure and auspicious. Then who is the person that should do it? Anyone who is aspiring to attain the ultimate goal of life. How should one relate to this? He says, carefully and attentively. So instructions to the Prachetas, instructions to us. So Prabhupada says the word Viviktam is significant. No one should think of prayers recited by Lord Shiva as sectarian. They are confidential, so much so that anyone desiring the ultimate prosperity or auspiciousness must take the instructions of Shiva and pray to the personality of Godhead as Lord Shiva himself did. Right? So Prabhupada makes this point that Viviktam means that it's not meant for the Brahmanas only, or not meant for the humans only. It's for everyone. The only qualification is that the person is seriously aspiring to attain the ultimate goal of life. Another way of saying is that the person is seriously desiring to execute bhakti, and the person is willing to listen to this carefully and attentively. With ultimately what it means is with faith in Lord Shiva, because this is coming from Lord Shiva. Okay, next verse. Maitri uvacha ittanukrosh hridyayo Bhagavan ahatan Shiva Baddhanjalin Rajaputra Narayana Parovachaha. The great sage Maitri continued, out of his causeless mercy, the exalted personality Lord Shiva, a great devotee of Lord Narayan, continued to speak to the king's son who were standing with folded hands. So, some verse reveals, or the preceding verse receives some understanding of what are the qualifications of the Prachetas to receive the Rudra Gita, or for anyone to receive spiritual instructions. Right? So we see that Lord Shiva came on his own to benedict the Prachetas. So this speaks about the attraction of Devas and exalted personality and other Vaishnavas to those taking to the path of Bhakti. Right? So one qualification is the person is seriously endeavoring to follow the path of Bhakti. Second, the potency of the mantra increases when it is received from a bona fide guru in Parampara. So in the previous verse, Lord Shiva said that you hear when I chant this verse. So it's the oral tradition of the guru instructing the disciple. And Lord Shiva, of course, is the highest amongst bona fide gurus. So as a bona fide guru, he is directly instructing. The mantra has potency, but its potency increases tremendously when it is given in the disciplic succession. Then, thirdly, in the previous verse, Lord Shiva says, now please hear attentively, which means that inattentiveness is an offense. And being attentive to the instructions of the guru is empowering. So attentiveness is not just for the benefit of being able to receive the message. When the disciple is attentive, then the heart of the guru opens. And the guru empowers the disciple to receive and act. Now the prachetas are standing there with their ears wide open. Lord Shiva still says, please hear attentively. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is standing with all his senses focused on Krishna. And yet there are so many times when Krishna says, Tachshnu, now hear from me. And so, not because he's felt that Arjuna was becoming inattentive, but because he was repeatedly emphasizing that this attentiveness is something that goes beyond the simple act of being present. This attentiveness opens the heart of the guru. And the fourth point, we see that the prachetas are Badha Anjalin. Badha Anjalin means they're standing with folded hands. So the instructions from the guru should be accepted with humility. So Lord Shiva, he was glorifying the prachetas. That you are an exalted devotee, you're dear to me, I'm a devotee, you're a devotee. Almost putting them at the same level as he himself was. And came on his own. So the prachetas did not become proud or arrogant. That, oh, Lord Shiva is a devotee, we are a devotee. Once I was attending a class by Bhakti Maharaj, and jokingly he was saying that within ISKCON, devotees join, they start chanting a few rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and then they say that, oh, Surya, Chandra, Indra, they're all below me. So they automatically place themselves far above all the demigods. Sometimes they become openly disrespectful, not understanding the difference between what is the proper conduct amongst Vaishnavas. So here we see that the prachetas, despite all the glorification by Lord Shiva, strongly maintain the position of humility. And through that, they are able to receive the instructions. So Prabhupada says that when a mantra is chanted by a great devotee, the mantra becomes even more powerful. Although the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is powerful in itself, a disciple upon initiation receives the mantra from a spiritual master. For when the mantra is chanted by the spiritual master, it becomes more powerful. Lord Shiva advised the sons of the king to hear him attentively, for inattentive hearing is offensive. Okay, so now we begin with the Rudra Gita. Sri Rudra Vacha Jitam Tatma Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu Me Bhavata Bhavattaradha Saradham Sarvasmat Mane Namaha. Lord Shiva addressed the Supreme Personality of the God, Supreme Personality of Godhead, with the following prayer. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glories unto you. You are the most exalted of all self-realized souls. Since you are always auspicious for the self-realized, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You are worshipable by virtue of the all-perfect instructions you give. You are the super soul. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you as the supreme being. So when we see the mood of the prayers by Lord Shiva, so even though he says that I am going to give you a mantra, he's actually going to be himself praying to Lord Vishnu. So the Rudra Gita is not an instruction by Lord Shiva to the Prachetas, but actually it is a prayer by Lord Shiva to Lord Vishnu. The instruction is that the Prachetas are hearing it attentively, and then they can also repeat the prayers. So it's like the Guru chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and the disciple listening to it, and then also taking up the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And so by example and personal realizations, the Guru is instructing the disciple. Same thing Lord Shiva is doing that in the next 35 verses. Rudra Gita has 36 verses. In the next 36 verses, we will see Lord Shiva praying to Lord Vishnu. And the construct of the prayer is very, very interesting. That before Lord Shiva actually prays to Lord Vishnu, he prays to be in a position to, he prays to be purified to pray. It's like saying that on my own, I'm not even qualified to pray to you. So I'm first praying that I become qualified to pray to you. That's the first part of the prayer. And then there is the actual prayer, and then there is the Falshruti. So the first 11 verses of the Rudra Gita, Lord Shiva gives obeisances to the Chaturviva, to the 4 expansions of Lord Krishna, Sankarshan, Anirudh, Pradyumna, Vasudev, and to the presiding deities of the various elements, the devas, for purification. So I'm trying to set the frame, because let's see. While Lord Shiva is praying to the expansions of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada will always consider it as prayers to Krishna. Right? So, considering that factually, when Lord Shiva is praying to the Chaturviva, he is praying to them because they are expansions of Krishna. When Lord Shiva is praying to Surya or Chandra or Vayu, he is not praying to them in their position as demigods, because he has a much superior position. But he is praying to them as expansions of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada in all his translations, in purport he'll explain, but in all his translations, he will consider that these prayers are directed towards the Lord. Right? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad, he makes that distinction. He considers the prayers to be directed towards the demigods as representatives of the Lord. Right? So there's a slight difference. Both of them are essentially talking about prayers to the Lord, but when we later on read the translations and the explanations, I'll try to bring it up then also, but I'm just trying to set the context here. So each verse is a prayer to a certain expansion of the Lord because of the relationship of the expansion with the Lord. So what does this prayer begin with? So typically speaking, prayers begin with glorification. And the first word that Lord Shiva says is Jitam, right? So Jitam means all glories. So as soon as a devotee is inspired by the Lord to offer the prayer to the Lord, the mood of the devotee is immediately that one glorifies the Lord by saying, all glories unto you, my Lord. Right? So this glorification is acceptance of the fact that the recitation of this prayer is actually being inspired by the Lord. Prabhupada says this, that you cannot execute bhakti without Krishna inspiring you to execute bhakti. So many times devotees say that when are we going to get the mercy of Krishna? The fact that they're able to chant, the fact that they're able to do deity worship or the other angas of bhakti, that's testimony to the mercy of the Lord. Because without that, bhakti is not possible. Right? So that's why praise starts with Jitam, that all glory is unto you. Thank you for inspiring me. And also, whenever the Lord is glorified, auspiciousness is created. So because the prayers are like an offering to the Lord, like when we offer bhoga to the Lord, at least in the temple, there's a lot of attention. The plate is clean, the offerings are put nicely. So all this creates auspiciousness. Then Lord Shiva says, Atma Vidubariya. Right? So he says, best of the self-realized soul, most exalted of the self-realized soul. Right? So he's glorifying the position of Krishna. Prabhupada says that he quotes the verse from Katha Upanishad, that Nityo Nityanam Chetana Chetananam, that amongst all the eternals there is one, and amongst all the conscious beings there is one, right? And that is the personality of God, the chief among the living beings, Atma Vidvarya, establishing the position of the Lord. Then, Swasthya Astumi, right? Let there be auspiciousness, which means that the Supreme Lord is auspicious for all self-realized souls who have. So the self-realized souls typically have three qualities: that they are situated in the eternal condition of being a devotee, right? Which means that they understand the position of the Lord as well as the individual's constitutional position, and they are not forgetful about the service to the Lord, right? So they're perfectly situated in Sambandh and Abhiday. Second quality is that they have a natural attraction for the qualities of the Lord, or a natural attraction to the Lord. And third is no attraction to liberation. So if they don't have an attraction for liberation, what is that they have an attraction for? Lord Shiva is saying, Swaste Swaste Rastuni. As a devotee, he's saying that let there be auspiciousness. That's what the devotees want. Right? They don't want liberation, they don't want wealth, they simply want auspiciousness. What's the prayer of Prahlad Maharaj? Swastirastu sarvasya. Let there be auspiciousness everywhere. Khala prasidatam. Let all enviousness be pacified. Right? So, mood of the devotee is not only auspiciousness for themselves, but for everyone else. So, Lord Shiva is starting his prayers by saying, Swastya, Swastya Rastuni. That let there be auspiciousness for me and for everyone else. So, after praying for auspiciousness, Lord Shiva says that Bhavatara Dasa Radham. That for such souls who are Atma Vidvarya, who are Swastya Swastya Astumi, the perfect object of worship is the personality of God. Bhavatar Aradhasa Radham. That you, the personality of Godhead, is the perfect object of worship. And then he says, Sarvasma Atmanenam. So now he is offering obeisances unto the super soul. So he's been saying you, now he's giving it a name, right? He's saying like Sarvasma Atmanenam. Sarvasma Atmane is another name for the super soul. So why is he worshipping the super soul and not the Lord? Acharya say that since the Lord gives instructions as Sarvatman, as Chaitya Guru, as super soul, Lord Shiva offers him respect with this word Sarvasma Atmane Namah. And Srila Prabhupada gives references to the fact that the super soul is giving inspiration. Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Mataspiti Jnanam Apohanancha. And Krishna says, from me comes remembrance and forgetfulness. So that is Krishna as the super soul. Then in Chaturshloki 10:10, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mam Apyantite. That I from within give the intelligence. And then in 1.8.20 Bhagavatam, praised by Queen Kunti, says that you descend to propagate transcendental service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists. So this is his position as the super soul. So because as super soul, Lord Vishnu is the eternally accompanying Guru who will inspire one to take to Bhakti. Lord Shiva is offering obeisances to the super soul. Prabhupada also comments in the connection to the position of Lord Shiva. So Prabhupada says that the Lord is worshipped by all. By all meaning by aspiring devotees like the Prachetas and by perfected devotees like Lord Shiva. So Prabhupada quotes the Atmaram verse 1.7.10. That Atmaram refers to those who are not interested in material world. Such persons are either impersonal or personal. Impersonalists also become devotees when they are attracted by the personal transcendental qualities. Example of Sukadeva Goswami. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva wants to remain a fixed devotee of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. As explained in the following verses, Lord Shiva never desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord, like the impersonalists. Rather, he thinks that it would be good fortune for him to continue to be fixed in the understanding of the Lord as the Supreme Being, By this understanding, one realizes that all living entities, including Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and other demigods, are servants of the Supreme Lord. Right? So Prabhupada essentially helps us to make 2 points, that establishing the personal form of the Lord and the fact that everyone else is eternally situated in service to the Lord. Okay, so let me pause over here and see if there is any discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. In verse number 31, where we said that who wants to attain the goal, one should be all those qualities, what we said, right? I have 2 questions. I myself, actually, I'm born Shaivite, right? Like I do have a Linga Puja and all. But we learned within past whatever years I was here, we are watering the source or the roots, not the branches. That's what we have been taught in all the lectures. But even then, whatever is the ritual, I do continue with it, like whatever. So my question here is, why is it, again, it's not like going against the thing, but why is it not like authenticated worship to Shiva from all our Vaishnava devotees? They say that not to offend either Shiva or any devotee. One of the statement we said we need to see a devotee equal to same as Lord or even more than Lord, right? So that was one of the statement. But still, this is from a preaching perspective. I need to, even for my parents, right? We are Shaivites, and I couldn't, if I say this like watering the root and not the branches, they take it as an offense, right? So how to convince, like I need to have like a sound preaching point there. I'll ask the second question later.
It's a difficult challenge because the only real tool that you have is that of the scriptures, right? You can give so much scriptural evidence. You can quote Brahma Samhita, you can quote Rudra Gita, other pastimes also where Lord Shiva is accepting shelter from Lord Vishnu. If one is not willing to listen to that with faith, then there's nothing that you can do. If they consider that to be offensive, if they consider that to be inaccurate, there is nothing that you can say. The best you can say is that Lord Shiva likes to be worshipped with Lord Vishnu. So worship them together, because they will not take the position of worshipping Lord Shiva as a devotee of Vishnu. In the Shiv Puran, there are pastimes of Lord Vishnu taking shelter of Lord Shiva that they can quote to you. Just like in Devi Puran, there are so many pastimes of Lord Vishnu standing with folded hands in front of Durga Devi. And those who are Shaktas, they can quote that to you. So they will say, you have your scriptures, we have our scriptures. Right? So Jiva Goswami resolves this in Tattva Sambhava, but then again, that's a Vaishnava perspective. Right? Jiva Goswami says that instructions that are given in mode of goodness are superior to that of passion and ignorance. Right? But That is Jiva Goswami as a Vaishnava speaking. From a practical perspective, the best you can do is to say that Lord Shiva likes to be worshipped with Lord Vishnu. So we're worshipping Lord Shiva, Lord worship Lord Vishnu also.
Yeah, and now I've been one lecture I've heard, I don't know where. Basically, we all know Shiva meditates on Lord Sankarshan. So that's the only question I raised to in my preaching. Like, who do you feel Shiva will be meditating on? So probably that helps a little, but yeah. But another second question, Prabhu, is we do accept through the scriptures, whether it is Bhagavatam or I don't see any delineation or anything with respect to our perspectives. But at the same time, I've seen in temples we have like 6 Goswamis, or there maybe I don't know, I'm answering myself, as they're our lineage, we are respecting and worshipping them rather than Shiva directly. I don't know. We don't put any Shiva anywhere. Prabhupada didn't even authorize, or he said not to complicate the things, right? That's what I remember. So is that the reason, or I don't know?
That's the primary reason, because if you like, I'll give you an example that when I go back home to Delhi, then very close to my house is a Gaudiya Vaishnava temple, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's Gaudiya Vaishnava temple. They have an altar of Radha Krishna and Mahaprabhu, and then right next to this they have a Shivlinga. And fair amount of space given there. So morning I used to go there sometimes to attend Mangalarti, sometimes to listen to like Kirtan there, listen to Kirtan. And there would be so many people who would come, they would come inside the temple, go straight to Shivling. They would worship the Shivling, put whatever they have to do. Now, because they're pious, they would also come and give pranam to Radha Krishna. But their focus was on Shivling. But this is the prime TT. So Prabhupada didn't want to complicate matters like that. Like he says, there is the Katyani temple there in Vrindavan, and then we know we have the Chakaleshwar Mahadev and the Bhupeshwar, or Lord Shiva temples. We know that Sanatana Goswami worship Lord Shiva. So as long as the worship is in the right mood, it's perfectly fine. Right? Just like we worship the 6 Goswamis, we worship senior Vaishnavas in our parampara. Lord Shiva is an exalted Vaishnava, right? So as long as the mood is maintained, it's fine. But Prabhupada, this is mostly for Indian devotees. Western devotees did not have that baggage. But Indian devotees, they already had this confusion that in some cases they say all gods are the same. Shiva and Krishna and Chandra and Surya, they're all the same. Or in some cases, they'll say that Krishna is secondary to Shiva. So he didn't want all this confusion to be there. So he just kept it simple. Worship Radha Krishna, we done with it. And from a practical perspective, it is not compromising anything, because really speaking, we worship Radha Krishna and all the devas are pleased. This pastime is indicative of that. Right? The Prachetas had no desire to worship Lord Shiva. But just by the desire to worship Radha Krishna, Lord Shiva became pleased like that. Right? So it's factual. By exclusive worship of Krishna, nothing is lost.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just want to add something on that is the worship of the demigod is very ritualistic and very procedural. And if we miss some of the ritual, we can become offensive to the demigod, and it can backfire. Sometimes it's better to. This is why Srila Prabhupada, I think, does not want to get into this ritualistic thing also. Simply do bhakti and pray to Krishna and all Vishnu Tattva is much, much simpler.
That is true. That is true. And Prabhupada was a Gaudiya Vaishnava actually. He was particular to the point that he even discouraged worship of Vishnu Tattva. Like just worship Krishna. I recently attended the seminar, Mana Shiksha by Raghunath Goswami. And then one of his prayers is he says, in my mind, don't go after worship of Lord Vishnu. Just focus your mind on the son of Nanda. Right? So the focus is like razor sharp, only on Krishna.
Yes.
Is it true? Is it also due to the fact that Prabhupada is preaching to people who have no idea what they are getting into? And in that case, if you keep telling them, oh, you can worship this, you can worship that, then they get confused and won't know exactly the essence of the bhakti and things like that. So in order to keep it simple and focused, he would not recommend worship of Lord Ganesh, and although Rupa Goswami says to pray to Lord Ganesh before beginning anything, and same thing with the Lord Shiva worship, something that I'm thinking. Whereas the audience, if it is East Indian audience like us, we have different outlook about all these worships, and we are also confused on the other hand already, because we were not given proper knowledge in my childhood. At least I know about that. I'm also Sai by the way, and by the association of devotees I became more of a Krishna devotee. So I was thinking that as Sharan Prabhu was telling, to keep it very simple, to keep it focused, not that not to complicate, mostly for not to complicate things. I thought that's what most important thing that I'm thinking.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that both the factors were at play. That Prabhupada wanted to keep it simple for the Western audience. He did not want to create any confusion for the Indian audience. And he wanted to stay true to the Tattva. And he accomplished all this by preaching exclusive worship of Krishna. The scriptures also say the same thing. And so it's not that, like these verses, like I'm giving you the example, that in all the verses, even when Lord Shiva is praying to the demigods, Srila Prabhupada interprets it as that he's praying to Lord Vishnu, to keep it simple. Because otherwise people will start saying, why is Lord Shiva praying to Chandra? Which means that Chandra is same as Vishnu. Right? So that's why Prabhupada kept it simple. But at the same time, it preserved the Tattva. Because even the Acharyas like Vishnu Chakravarti, they say, Lord Shiva is praying to Chandra, not as demigod Chandra, but as the personality that has been empowered by Lord Vishnu to do something. Right? And we'll see more about it. So instead of going through this explanation, Prabhupada keeps it simple. That Lord Shiva is praying to Lord Vishnu. And the keep it simple principle really works. Right? So even though we say that we are born and we know, but I can tell you that before I came to Krishna consciousness, all that I had was disinformation. So when I came from India to US, like I give this example, I found it very difficult to drive because I was so used to driving on the left side of the road. And the person that I was sharing my flat with, he was Indian, but he never drove in India. So we both went to driving school together. And he was like, oh, you've been driving for so many years. I was saying I'm expert in driving. But he quickly learned how to drive, got his driver's license, and was, fine. And I kept failing my driver's test because anytime I would take a left turn, I would go to the other side of the road. And, I was so conditioned in that way. So even though we say that we know a lot, but for the most, what we know is incomplete or incorrect. So Prabhupada had that service to do for us also, that he wanted to clear out all the misconceptions that we had. So he kept it simple. Right? Sometimes people say that because Prabhupada was speaking to Westerners who know nothing about nothing, he kept it simple. Right? But actually he kept it simple because he was also preaching to Indians who were worse than knowing nothing about nothing, that they thought that they know everything, but they actually knew nothing. Right? Prabhupada gives that example that if a person is sleeping, you can wake the person up. If the person is pretending to sleep, you can never wake the person up. That was the condition of typical Indians. I mean, of course, not all Indians, but typical mainstream Indians. So it was more for service to unclutter. Like when I came to this understanding that Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam, simple enough for me. Right? I didn't have to get confused. When I go back home, in my home, the puja is a traditional puja. Like first, there is the prayers to Lord Ganesh are done, then Lord Shiva is done, then Krishna is prayed to, but Durga Devi is the prime deity in our house. Durga Devi is prayed to. But I can sit in the whole puja without getting bewildered. Because at least in my mind, thanks to Srila Prabhupada, I know what the position is, and I also know, why this is going. Not because they are right, not because it is given in the scriptures, because they have an incomplete understanding. That's why they are doing what they are doing. Okay, carrying on. Let's move on to verse 34. Namah pankajnabhaya bhuta sukshmendriyatmane vasudevaya shantaya kutastha swarochase. My Lord, you are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. You are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects. And you're also the all-pervading Vasudeva. You are most peaceful because of your self-illuminated existence. You are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations. So in 4 verses, Lord Shiva will pray to the Chaturvyuha. So the Chaturvyuha are prayed as the deities of the Antakarna. So the Antakarna is composed of Chitta, Mana, Buddhi, Tamas, consciousness, mind, intelligence, Chitta, Mana, Buddhi, and Ahankar. So Mana, Buddhi, Ahankar, and Chitta. So Chitta is Shuddha Sattva, and then we go to goodness, passion, and ignorance. And each of the deity of Chaturvyuha are presiding over one of the elements of the Antakarna. So here, Lord Shiva is praying to Vasudev, who is the Chitta or consciousness, right? So Lord Shiva starts by saying Namo Pankaja Nabhaya. You remember praise of Kunti Devi, she also starts with Namo Pankaja Nabhaya. So what does Pankaja Nabhaya means? That one who has a lotus flower growing from the navel. So who does this point to? Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, right? So he prays to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He says, Bhut Sushma Indriya Atmani. That you as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu are the Bhut Sukshmaya. So the origin of the senses and the sense objects. And Sukshma means subtle, Bhuta means gross. And Indriya means senses, and Atmane means of the self, right? So Namo Pankaj Nabhaya. So, O Lord Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who is the origin of the senses and the sense objects. That Prabhupada says, another name of Krishna is the master of the senses, Rishikesh. So why is Lord Shiva first praying to him? Because Lord Shiva is aspiring to engage his senses in the service of the master of the senses. Right? So that is why he is praying to the controller of Chitta or consciousness. So following that, he says, Vasudevaya Shantaya. Right? So who is the presiding deity of Chitta? Vasudevaya. And so he's saying that first he is praying to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu so that his senses can be engaged in the service of the Lord. Then he's praying to Vasudeva Shantaya. Shantaya means that you are the predominating deity of Chitta. So please make my Chitta peaceful. So Vasudeva is Shantaya and Kuthastaya. Shantaya means that he is peaceful. Kuthasthaya means that firmly placed. Essentially, it means that one who is not agitated by the 6 kinds of transformations, right? In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives us the 6 kinds of transformations, which is Utpatti, like Janma, Vritti, which is growth, Sthiti, which is maintenance, then expansion, which is having children or byproducts, deterioration, which is growing old, and Mrityu, which is dying. So Lord Vasudeva is Kuthastya. He is not affected by these transformations, not agitated about it. And then Swarochase. Swarochase means that he's situated in his own illumination. He does not rely on anything else. He's fully independent. Vishwanath Chakravarti says Swarochase also means beautiful. So Lord Shiva is appreciating the beauty of Vasudeva. So bear in mind that Lord Shiva at this point is praying for the right to perform bhakti or the right to deliver prayers, which is one of the angas of bhakti. Now, understanding that bhakti involves the action of the senses and the sense objects, Lord Shiva is saying that, please make my senses dedicated to you. Right? So he's offering respect to the tanmatras. So he says Bhuta Sukshma. Bhuta Sukshma is the subtle senses, which are the tanmatras, which is like smell and taste and sight and touch and sound, and the senses. Right? So with this desire that because what happens between the sense and the sense objects? the tanmatras come and bind them. Right? So there is eyes, and then there is the object of seeing, but then there is sight that connects the eye to the object. Or there is smell and there is a rose. There is nose and there is a rose, but unless the nose has an ability to smell, the two will not be connected. Right? So that's why he's talking about the senses, the sense object, and the tanmatras, the bhuta sukshmas. So he's praying to Lord Vasudeva that I become agitated by this interaction between the senses and the objects. But you do not. You are not affected by the 6 kinds of transformations. Because you are not, you can now empower me also to be free of these 6 transformations. Right? Logical speaking, right? Only if a person himself has transcended something can he empower somebody else. Right? So Lord Shiva wants to execute bhakti because he's executing an initial stage, he is executing with his senses, understands that the distraction is because the senses will seek out the sense objects through the tanmatras, recognizes the fact that Vasudeva is controller of these and that he himself is not affected by it. So that's why he is saying that please also make me immune to this senses so that I become qualified to execute bhakti. Prabhupada says the word Shantaya Kutasthya Swarochasa are very significant. Although the Lord is within this material world, he is not disturbed by the waves of material existence. However, conditioned souls are agitated by 6 kinds of transformations. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it's the same prayer. He restates it poetically. So I wanted to share that with you. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that, so this is him on behalf of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is saying, I offer my obeisances to Vasudeva, the presiding deity of Chitta, the first of the Chaturviva, in order to purify each sense individually. After purifying the body and the sense of material enjoyment, O Vasudeva, make my Chitta peaceful and unchanging, Kutasthya, and then make it conscious of bhakti by revealing your beauty, Swarochasa. Prabhupada concludes by saying, Lord Shiva desires not to be misled by material senses. By the grace and the help of Lord Vasudeva, who is all-pervading, one can engage the senses in devotional service without deviation, just as the Lord acts without deviation. Okay, let's move on to the next verse, 35. Sankarshanaya sukshmaya durantayantakaya cha namo vishwa prabodaya pradyumana yantar atmane. My dear Lord, you are the origin of the subtle material ingredients, the master of all integration, as well as the master of all disintegration. The predominating deity named Sankarshan and the master of intelligence known as the predominating deity Pradyumna. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. So in this verse, 2 of the Chaturvyas are prayed to, Sankarshan and Pradyumna. So Sankarshan is the predominating deity of Ahankar, false ego. Pradyumna is the predominating deity of Buddhi, or intelligence. Srila Prabhupada says that Sankarshan also represents gravity and disintegration. He says integration and disintegration, whereas Pradyumna is maintenance. So integration is creation, disintegration is destruction, Lord Sankarshan is the master of it. And growth and maintenance is what comes between creation and destruction. And Pradyumna is the master of that. So essentially in this verse, Lord Shiva is praying for material detachment and spiritual attachment. Right? So this was one of the principles of the instruction of Sanat Kumar to Prithu Maharaj. We see the same in this prayer by Lord Shiva. So Krishna as Sankarshan, he destroys and burns. And so Lord Shiva is praying to him that please destroy and burn my material attachments. So he is considering himself to be materially integrated. And he is saying that you're the master of disintegration. So you disintegrate my material attachment. Pradyumna, as the presiding deity of intelligence, can empower the intelligence to take control of these detached senses and then attach them to the Lord, right? So by the mercy of Lord Sankarshan, the material detachments has been burnt away. By the mercy of Pradyumna, these material attachments are now replaced by spiritual attachment, right? So this is essentially the whole process of practicing devotional service. So Lord Sankarshan is described as Sukshmaya and Durantaya. Sukshmaya also means unmanifest, and Durantaya is infinite, as he who burns the universe by the fire in his mouth, that is Antakaya. So the prayer is, O Sankarshan, burn my bondage to infinite attachments to the house, body, caused through the workings of the false ego. Right? This is Vishnu Chakravarti restating the prayer. So this is a prayer to develop material attachment. Then after separating the possessiveness and false ego, Lord Shiva prays that bind that sense of possessiveness I have to the topics of Krishna, and bind my ego, which was false, now to my identity as a devotee, Ashraya. Right? So this is also a prayer to Sankarshan, because Sankarshan is a master of both disintegration and integration. Then Lord Shiva prays to Pradyumna that I offer my respects to you to wake up my intelligence so that it will be situated in Bhakti. So which means that this act of integrating is facilitated by the mercy of Pradyumna. So that is why Pradyumna is being also considered as the source of his spiritual attachment. Okay. Okay, I'll do one more verse, and after that, I'll do two more verses. Then we'll stop. 36. Namo Namo Niruddhaya Rishikeshendriyatmane Nama Param Hamsaya Purnaya Nivritatmane. My Lord, as the supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarshan because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire from your mouth. So this is now worshipping the fourth deity of the Chaturvya, Anuruddha. So Lord Shiva is teaching us to turn everything that we have, our material, gross, subtle, every aspect of our existence, and every aspect of the entire cosmic existence in the service of the Lord. Right? In the 42nd verse, Lord Shiva will directly glorify Krishna. Now he's glorifying the expansions of Krishna through which the material world and the jivas are sustained. So before offering praise to Krishna, Shiva is offering praise to be purified so that he can be qualified to offer praise. So what is Lord Shiva saying to Anirudh? He's saying that, so Lord Anirudh is the presiding deity of the mind, and the mind is the master of the senses, right? So he says, please be kind on me, so that I can be always in a perfect state of cleanliness and engaged in devotional service of the Lord. So the example is given that just like the sun sterilizes everything, it said even if the sunlight falls in an unclean place, sun doesn't become dirty, the unclean place becomes clean. And just like fire, it consumes everything, even unclean things. So similarly, Lord Shiva is saying that all these dirty things within the mind, may they be burnt by the mercy of Anirudh. Right? So making his mind qualified. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that after 4 components of Antakarana, Chitta, Ahankar, Buddhi, Manas, by worshipping the Upasya deities, Lord Shiva offers respects to the Lord in the form of the presiding deities of the elements. In 4 verses, in order to glorify the 5 gross elements which constitute the body and external senses, he offers these prayers. So, in the first half of the verse, he is praying to Aniruddha. In the second half of the verse, where Srila Prabhupada considers the prayer to be directed to Anant and Sankarshan, Vishwanath Chakravarti considers the prayer to be directed to Agni. That's why that point is made, that Agni is capable of purifying. So Paramhamsaya is sun. So he's saying that Paramhamsaya Ni, which means constantly, Vrita, nourishes Atmani. The Jiva Nibrit Atmani, by rain or by heat, etc. Right? So the prayer is to both fire, the deities of fire and sun, so that they purify the jiva of all the dirty things that are obstacles in the path of bhakti. Prabhupada says that Paramhamsa is also applied to people who is completely cleansed. When there is sufficient sunshine, the mind remains clear and transparent. In other words, the sun god helps the mind of the living entity become situated on the platform of Paramhamsa. So we see that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada will also expand on the implication that there is worship to the devas. In the verses, he always connects them to the form of Lord Vishnu. So sun is, in addition to purifying, is also the deity of the eyes. Without eyes, one cannot see anything. So in the first canto, 11th chapter, the residents of Dwarka, they prayed to Krishna that when you're gone, our eyes are useless as if without sun. So thus the prayer is also understood to mean that make my eyes see the beauty of the Lord, right? And the prayer to to the sun god continues in the next verse. So I don't think I'm going to take the next verse just because we don't have sufficient time. I'll pause here for any discussion.
Prabhu, we also know Lord Shiva always meditate upon Aniruddha, right?
Still, he considered to meditate on Sankarshan.
Sankarshan.
Except that the snakes that are around Lord Shiva are expansions of Anantashesh, whose expansion of Sankarshan. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. We know that all these four Chaturviya originate from Lord Balaram, no?
So yeah, so they're non-different. That's why Prabhupada makes this point, that they're non-different from Krishna. Right? They're originating from Lord Balaram.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Haribol Prabhuji, one small request, Prabhuji. Like actually, whenever we try to, share our understanding about Krishna consciousness, or when we try to, convince the other person to take up some path, rather than simply, wasting on sense gratification. When we make those attempts to bring somebody close to Krishna, Prabhuji, the general challenge that we encounter is we don't understand really what they stand, because they appear genuine in their feeling, but at the same time, like Prem Kishore Prabhu is saying, some people are attached to Shiva, and then when we say, okay, at least worship Shiva, leave about Krishna consciousness and all, like rather than simply, like do that, on that they have concerns. And then if we say that, okay, Lord Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, all three are same level, you can think like that, but at least do something. Even that they would have problem, and then they may come up with something else like that. I am God kind of conception. When I say that, okay, at least, okay, those three are gods, but at least accept that you are not God, then also they have a problem. Then when I flip it and say that, okay, you are God, no need to worship anybody, then also they have a problem. So really speaking, this genuinely problem. They don't, like for the sake of argument, not like that. But at the same time, even they do not take up the stand that I am not sure what is right. Many times we see people, they speak as if they know. That is also, so there are varying kind of people are there with mixed kind of concepts put together. It's not easy to understand the root problem, other than thinking everybody wants to become God internally, that philosophically we know, but specific to that person, sharing what that can make him more prone to take spiritual life more seriously. So maybe if possible, Prabhuji, like if you can give us a class on various kind of obstacles people have for accepting Krishna consciousness, so that knowing these things, we will be aware when somebody is using certain kind of reciprocation or response, we may know that this would be their root cause. Because at one point we will be like, okay, we can't do much, kind of hopelessness situation it comes. And internally to your heart only, we know that, okay, this is the right path, whatever we try to share, but we don't know how to convince them or how to touch their hearts.
It's a difficult thing. Even empowered devotees like Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, they had some success, they had some failures, and we are nowhere compared to them. Once Tripurari Maharaj was distributing a Bhagavad Gita, and the person who was asking for it, he was some kind of a scientist or something, and he said that I'm really worried about the water situation in California. There are droughts over there. Tripurari Maharaj said, this is a book that will help answer that question. Really? This book will answer that question about the water situation in California? Yes. So he bought that book. And then somebody shared this with Prabhupada, that isn't this being untruthful? Isn't this lying? Prabhupada said no. Because Bhagavad Gita solves all the problem. It will definitely solve the water problem and many other problems that the person is not aware of. So one of the things Prabhupada would say was yena kena prakarena Krishna mana niveshaya sarvavidhi nishedya or eta eva kinkare. So this was kind of like a Prabhupada verse. It's not a verse in the scripture, but Prabhupada compiled it from 2 or 3 different verses. Bhagavatam, NOD compiled this. One way or the other. Mana Krishna Niveshya. If you're able to take somebody's mind to Krishna, right? Sarvavidhi Nishedya, all the rules and regulations, all the yams and niyams, etayor eva kinkara, are definitely subordinate to this. So telling lies, cheating, whatever, they're all subordinate to this principle. So sometimes you have to tell people what they want to hear and give them Krishna consciousness, right? Person says that I'm God. You say you chant Hare Krishna, you realize you're God. Chanting Hare Krishna, right? And then you realize that he's not. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. Ravindra Sar Prabhu, I think I shared this with you. When he started going to the temple, he was completely impersonalist. I'm God. Devotee said, yeah, chant Hare Krishna, you'll figure out your God. And within 2 weeks, he said he understood that I'm nowhere near to God. Right? I'm there. So yeah, devotees cheated him, but for his benefit. Sometimes devotees say, have prasad and Prabhu, don't worry about all this philosophy. We don't understand philosophy very well. You are speaking many, many high things. Just come and have prasad. Right? And that works. So yeah, it's the preacher is very expert. The preacher is able to see what the person needs and give it in a way that does not that gets the person closer to Krishna. So it's a big topic.
Maybe Prabhuji, like you said, it's a big topic. One day, whenever it is possible, you can give us a class on various kind of philosophies that stop people approaching Krishna, and what are the ways we can approach those scenarios.
Yeah, there is a seminar there on so essentially all the deviant philosophies that stop people from taking to Krishna consciousness are part of the 6 Nyayas. Like the Patanjali Sutras, what's the one by Purva Karma Nyaya, like Karma Mamsha. So there are the 6 Nyayas, and there's a very nice seminar that is there. I've heard it a long time ago, that basically says that these 6 Nyayas essentially encapsulates the entire gamut of thoughts that people have that stop them from taking to Krishna consciousness. So if you master these 6 Nyayas, then you can approach them on their terms. That's what Jiva Goswami did. Before he went to Vrindavan, he went to Kashi. And there he studied Mayavadi philosophy, he studied the Nyaya, and then he started doing the Vaishnava philosophy. So it would be a good topic for discussion. I don't know if we'll get time, but yes, something to meditate. Okay, so I'll stop here. We're a little over time. My apologies.
Possible that link, Prabhuji, seminar link you have, Prabhuji?
I'll look for it. I'll send it to you. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.